sad moment for those who love Steven Gerrard. Obviously, we've got a few idiots in our fan base that treat him like shit, which makes him about as much as a Liverpool fan as a Man United season ticket holder. I've watched his whole career. I even, do you know what? I mean, he's my hero. Those that know me personally know that I had the opportunity to meet him and have a photo of him, and he was just, I put my arm around him, and he was just like, it was like holding a real life superhero. The boy that turned into a man. I even had the pleasure of, when I worked for Liverpool, when I worked at Anfield, I got some work at DC, which is the distribution centre, which is in Wiston. And I even went to see the Wiston Juniors playing field where he was spotted by Liverpool coaches to go on and make the dream career that he had at Liverpool. Now, I'm just going to stick up for him a little bit here, because there's been a lot of people slating him as a manager, and it's starting to piss me off, and I'll tell you why it is. He's not good enough to be Liverpool manager, and then there's people saying Pep Linders. Okay, let's go into that. So, Steven Gerrard, I was watching him when he was the under-23 manager. He used to just put the under-23 games on just to see him on the touchline, and he's a winner. Even into his last breath yesterday, in terms of his football breath, in terms of the last thing he had to say in front of the cameras, he still was fighting. He still said, you know, I ain't going to give up. I'm going to roll my sleeves up, get ready for Sunday. I've never quit anything. I've never quit anything in football in my life, and I'm not going to stop now. I think it was 15 minutes later he was sacked. But the treatment that he received was an absolute disgrace. And I was talking to a very close friend who's on this group yesterday, Sean McAllister, and he couldn't have worded it any better as to say that Scousers in general, Liverpool as a city in general, is the only sort of race that is allowed to be completely, you know, destroyed verbally these days. You know, I'm just going to read out what he put to me, because he put it yesterday on my Facebook, and I think he worded it perfectly. It wasn't just the odd song. For those of you that tuned in yesterday and actually watched the game between Fulham and Aston Villa, the songs were constant. They were all basically most of the first half and all of the second half. And it wasn't just the Villa fans; it was the Fulham fans. And Gerrard slipped on his fucking arse. I mean, going back to Denver Bar in 2013, was it 2013? 2014 season it was, wasn't it? And then there was you Scouse bastard, sign on because you'll never get a job again. And then there was get out of our club, and you Scouse bastard. He was getting pillar to post absolutely abused, and it was disgusting. And listen, I'm not being funny. I know that this is tribalism in football, but I can understand the Villa fans giving him a bit of shit, because, you know, they're getting beat 3-0 at Fulham. But the Fulham fans, this man played 114 games for England, captained his country. You think they would have sang something like classy, like one Steven Gerrard? I remember Crystal Palace came to us on the last day of the season when it was Gerrard's farewell game, and they stayed until the end to listen to his speech and sang one Steven Gerrard and applauded him off the pitch. That's class. Fulham yesterday showed a complete lack of class, and all of the songs were the usual: food poverty in Liverpool, unemployment in Liverpool, and let me just read out anyway, going on to the subject, what my friend had texted, because he's a Scouser himself, and he's right. And this is, if those of you tuning into this video now want to know why Scousers say Scouse not English, it's because of shit like that yesterday, because of the constant songs, the Hillsborough mocking. No wonder they look at themselves as a separate part of the United Kingdom. So here it is. This is what Sean put to me yesterday. He put, "This great nation love nothing more than abusing and provoking Scousers. It's the only form of abuse that they can get away with without being called bigots or I can't get the word out. Prejudicial dickheads. Prejudicial. That is a hard word, Sean. I'll give you that one. That is a difficult one for me to say, especially at 9 in the morning. And then he further went on to say, you can't abuse people for their race, religion or sexuality in society anymore, but you can always abuse people for being from Liverpool. And that is so true. And I'm not being funny, like I said, it wasn't just the odd song. This was two fucking sets of football fans hammering our captain. So yesterday, I actually put a couple of statuses up, and one of them was getting back at Liverpool, getting back alongside Jurgen, and learning the Liverpool way under Klopp, and groom him into being Klopp's successor in 2024. That gives him 2 years of solid working under Klopp. And a couple of the comments on this group were shocking. One saying, "Are you having a laugh? No chance." Like I was talking about some little Liverpool player that had played a couple of games for us, like Jay Spearing or something like that. We're talking about Steven Gerrard here. And when it goes to the point of him not being good enough to manage Liverpool, but yet Pep Lijnders is, let me just get something straight here with those that think that's the case. Pep Lijnders lasted 3 months in management at NEC Ninjaman in Holland before he was sacked. He's never, ever kept a job. The first job that he got, he was sacked. And he goes and writes a book, and now everybody knows how to play against us because he wrote that book on how we play. We've had to change our formation and our system now because that book tells you everything and how and all the tactics go. Don't get me wrong, he's a great coach. But to put him ahead of Stevie, who's gone into the Lions' den and managed at the top level, as in at Rangers, 3 seasons, got them into the knockouts of Europe. They wasn't even in Europe for 10 years until Gerrard went there. He's took on the Villa job and he's had no luck. If you actually look into it, he signed Diego Carlos, a top centre-back that Newcastle wanted, Man City were looking at, right? He got injured in his first game. He's never played since. He then goes and signed Lucas Digne from Everton for 26, 27 million. He gets injured. He's lost him as well. So they've lost a few games. Their heads are gone. They battered Chelsea first half last weekend. And if it wasn't for a man of the match performance of Kepa, they would have beat them. They held Man City to a draw. They played well. Last season, they nearly flipping did us a favour by being 2-0 up at the Etihad. He's just had no luck. But does that make him a bad manager? No, he's 42 years old, he's young, he's gone along. Name me a manager that hasn't been sacked. Jose Mourinho, how many times has he been sacked? Kenny Dalglish has been sacked. You know, the greats have been sacked. You know, some of the greatest managers in the world have been sacked. Conte's been sacked. You know, they all have. Thomas Tuchel's been sacked. But it doesn't make him a shit manager. All this stuff about Michael Beale and all that does me head in as well. All right, Michael Beale's doing well. But I'm telling you now, if he'd have kept Digne and Carlos, and he'd have built from his signings, didn't get on the pitch. So it's not even been Gerrard's team, apart from Coutinho, and Coutinho's been a complete shambolic, and that's down to Coutinho. Then players yesterday let down Steven Gerrard because that performance was embarrassing. And John McGinn even came out and said that. We let down the manager today. Well, yes, John McGinn, you more than anyone. Because Gerrard took a lot of shit when he gave you the captain's armband, and your performances since he's given you that armband have been an embarrassment. But what they did yesterday is they hung out a football legend. They hung out at one of the greatest footballers that has ever played the game in central midfield. They let down him. And them idiots that think that Gerrard's not good enough to manage Liverpool. He's 42 years old. Do you think Jurgen Klopp was brilliant at 42 years old? He was still learning his trade at Mainz. So, it is what it is. And then Klopp eventually got let go by Dortmund after 7 seasons. And then he left Mainz after 7 seasons. So, everybody has a slip in terms of, you know, a bump in the road. Look at Frank Lampard. Here's a classic example. Frank Lampard was sacked by Chelsea. He's then gone and got a second Premier League job, and he's now learned from his mistakes at Chelsea, and he's building from the back, and he's brought Conor Cody and he's brought him. So it depends on what Steven Gerrard wants to do now, but I can't see him being out of the game long because I think a lot of people will feel a bit bad for him. And if you look at Brendan Rodgers is in a worse position, and if you look at the Forest manager in a worse position than Villa are 2 wins away from being in the top 10, but they've sacked him because of the fans. The fans yesterday were singing "Get out of our club," and once that happens, Stevie has to go. So I hope he goes on a nice holiday now, and I hope that he just dusts himself down and goes again. Look at Frank Lampard as an example. Look at other managers. Scott Parker, for example, he's sort of had a couple of bumps in the road, and he's kept on fighting. He might even have to drop down to the Championship. Who knows? There's some big clubs down there, you know, someone like Sunderland or someone like a Sheffield Wednesday, something to get himself back on the managerial land. I know they're in the League One, Sheffield Wednesday, or even that, you know. Let's not forget that there's a job going at Wolves. I mean, I know that Steve Morgan has something to do with Wolves, or used to have something to do with Wolves. It used to have something to do with us. So it is what it is. I mean, I just feel sorry for him because, like I say, I've watched his whole managerial career going from the under-23s all the way till Rangers, and I watched all the games at Rangers, and I will continue to do so. I mean, even Robbie Fowler, when Robbie Fowler was managing in India, I used to put them on my bets. Because if you look at all the former Liverpool players now that are managing, you've got Xabi Alonso, who's at Bayer Leverkusen. You've got Dirk Kuyt, who's managing in Holland. You've got obviously, who's another one? There's another one I know there is. Daniel Agger is managing Kogi in Denmark. So we've got a lot of ex-Reds. Fernando Torres, he's the Atletico Madrid youth manager. So there's a lot at the moment that are getting back in management, and I really do hope that Stevie gets back on the wagon and goes again, because he deserves it and he deserves success. And I just hope he gets it. And do you know what? I actually hope that Aston Villa and Fulham get relegated now. I really do, because their treatment yesterday was just what the nation is at the moment, which is anti-Scouts. They hate them. And you can see that. So he's best off getting a job, you know, in the northern part of England. Stay away from the Midlands and down south, because you'll just get turned on because of where you come from. I'm telling you now, it's bigotry. It really is bigotry, but it's not classed as bigotry. It's amazing. You can't call somebody from India or Pakistan or China or Japan anything racial, but yet you can call somebody from Liverpool a Scouse bastard and unemployed and all that. So it just really pisses me off. And I know it's football, I'm not daft, I know it happens, but yesterday, it really hurt yesterday, seeing how heartbroken he was on the bench. And he looked defeated. He actually looked defeated. He couldn't get... Normally he's on the touchline barking out instructions, but I think he knew yesterday that they threw him under a bus, and it's fucking disgusting. So them players, I hope they get relegated, every one of them. But anyway, I'll speak to you all soon, because I'm going to do some videos for Nottingham Forest later on today. You'll never walk alone.